Hi, and welcome to Increase Engagement with Technology. In this session, we're going to learn different ways that we can engage our students with interactive activities to keep them interested in different concepts. You're also going to learn how to use technology to engage your students. If you don't know me, my name is Stephanie Howe, and I'm an instructional technology coach in Pickerington Local School District. I have been a tech coach for the past 6 years. Before that, I was an intervention specialist, and I help different students with different disabilities. My Twitter handle is right here at Mrs. Howe24. If you have questions or need anything throughout this session, please reach out to me. I love connecting with educators, and I love problem solving with them as well. So again, if you need anything, please reach out on Twitter. I'm a Google coach, innovator, and trainer, and GEG leader. I am also an author, and I have a podcast as well. So, where this engagement comes from, this is my son, AJ, and AJ loves monster trucks, and he's also 3. And where this kind of starts is one night I asked AJ to clean up his toys, and I got the 3-year-old answer, right? No, I'm not going to do it. And so we kind of argued back and forth for a little bit. But then I changed the question and I said, AJ, can you beat the timer? And I asked him if he could beat the timer and try to clean up his toys before he beat this timer. And what happened is AJ was super engaged in this activity. Now, same task, right? Same angle. His angle was to clean up his toys. However, when I asked him to just do it, I got the response of no, I'm not going to clean up my toys, right? But when I gamified it and I said, can you beat the timer? And I made it a challenge, AJ was so excited that he actually beat the timer and he got all of the toys cleaned up. And so, what I've learned from AJ, my 3-year-old, is that sometimes you need to word things a little bit differently to get what you want. And I've also learned that with our students, right? When we're working with some of our students that might be a little bit more difficult to engage and work with, when we changed our instruction just a little bit to add a little bit of sparkle to it, we can get those students to be engaged in the learning and to get them to want to try new things. So today we're going to talk about engagement. And when it comes to engagement, we want to think about that creativity. How can we be creative? How can we get our students to become critical thinking? And how can we use collaboration within our classroom? So these 3 key C's can help us when it does come to that engagement piece, when we are trying to work with our students to engage them along the way. And so right here is activity number 1. We're going to walk through 5 different kind of ways that you're able to engage your students. And with this, every resource has a video recap and you can see what it is called. If you want to see the resource, you will just click right here on the images. Okay, so again, images will have resources, and then down here is a video recap. Also, on all the video recaps, if you scroll down below in the description, you will also find the Google Slide resource as well. So if you're having a little bit of issues trying to grab that. Okay, so this is the photo scavenger hunt. And how the photo scavenger hunt works is students are working in groups. There is a timer as well, and students will take pictures to represent different vocabulary words in your classroom. This idea came from Amanda Sandoval. So if you're not following Amanda on Twitter, I highly suggest you go ahead and pause this video and do that. So with the photo scavenger hunt, again, you have 20 minutes. So your students have 20 minutes to work together, and they need to justify as well what their photos mean. So the first thing you as the teacher are going to do, it's pretty low prep, is you're going to make a copy of this Google slide. Once you've made your copy of this Google slide, you're going to add vocab words right in this area on each of the different slides. So 1 vocab word per slide. And then the students are going to do the rest. So then you're going to group your students. Some teachers will just tell students, other teachers will plan it out. Other teachers will just randomly group their students. So you got to decide how you want to group your students. I would say no more than 3 students per group. And what your students will do is they are not able to Google images if you want to add that challenge. Now, you don't have to. So, like, for example, you can allow them to use that Explore tool and add images here. Or you can have them actually kind of go on a scavenger hunt around your school building, around your classroom, and they might have to recreate some of these things. So, for example, for compare, I might take a picture of like a marker and a pencil. Okay. And you're like, that's not compare. But with the explanation, I can explain that I am comparing maybe my pencil with the marker, and I can explain how I demonstrated that with my photo. So again, you're going to do file, you're going to make a copy. Once you make a copy of this presentation, you're going to add your vocabulary words in for whatever you are teaching. You can also change the time if you think 20 minutes is too small of a time, or you can make it shorter to 10 minutes. And what your students, again, are going to do is they're going to go on a scavenger hunt. You can allow them to use Google for their scavenger hunt, but I like to sometimes add a challenge and have them, again, go around the school building to find things for their images. Once you are on your slide and your students have access to this, I typically assign this in our learning management system. In our district, we use Google Classroom, and every single student is able to edit by their group. So I usually make like a nice little slide that has like a group slides, and then I link group 1, group 2, group 3, group 4, and then I tell my students where to click. But you might have a different workflow, and that's totally okay as well. So right here, I'm going to go to Insert, and I'm going to click Image, and this is what your students are going to do, and they're going to click Camera. Now that my camera is here, they are going to click the camera button, and they are going to insert their picture. Oh man, that's a bad picture. And what they're going to do is they can resize it, and then they're going to, over here, use text to explain how a marker and the pencil are representing compare. Okay, and then they go on to the next word, and then the next word, and so on until they finish. Now, because there's a timer, your students might not finish all of these words. Their goal is to get as many as they can done before the end of the time, and then the group with the most done and correct might win some type of prize. So again, great way to kind of use some extended knowledge when it comes to your students learning, and they're able to, again, collaborate. They're engaged because they're up and moving, they're thinking outside the box, they're using that critical thinking to really make those connections with these vocabulary words, and then they're taking pictures and adding that explanation. This slide right here, this has a placeholder. So students can actually click on this one and they can add the camera. So that is another great tip if you would rather just do this. If not, they can go up to Insert, and then they can insert by an image. And you're able to copy and paste these to these different slides. And then right here, and then replace. And then I can make my explanation about my image and why I picked that. So again, activity number 1, photo scavenger hunt. Great way to engage your students and getting them interacting with their vocabulary words. Activity number 2 is Fast and Curious. So again, here is the video resource. And how we do Fast and Curious is a lot of fun. Your students will love this activity. It's a great way. I have a teacher that's doing it right now, and her students are trying to beat their scores. So what you want to do is you want to go to a game site. So you might go to Gimkit, you might go to Quizzes, you might go to Kahoot, whatever site you want to use, and you can mix it up too. There's sometimes where I have teachers that will use different game sites to engage their students in the vocabulary that they're learning or the topic that they're learning. And what happens is every single day for a week, students are going to take the same exact quiz. So whether if it's in Quizzes, Gimkit, Kahoot, Blooket, any of those websites, it doesn't matter. But every single day, your students are going to take that quiz and they're going to write down their percentage. Okay, so for example, on Monday, the students did a Kahoot. They scored 20% on that Kahoot. They didn't know the vocab words. It was brand new knowledge to them. Now what happens on Tuesday, they take the exact same Gimkit and their scores go up 45%. And what's interesting about that is because on Monday, they realized that, hey, they got immediate feedback if they missed or got the word correct. And based on that feedback, they started to train and learn that new vocabulary word. And so then on Tuesday, their score actually went up, where on Wednesday, it went up even more to 65. Now, on Wednesday, I typically like to view Wednesday and I like to go kind of a step further. So now that we're at Wednesday, so we're halfway through the week, I might start to differentiate my students' instruction. They are going to look at what words they missed individually. So every student might have a different word. And I can look at the class average too, and I can see, okay, multiple students missed this word, and we can do multiple different types of instruction to reinforce that strategy for the students. And so again, on Wednesday, we might do like a FRAIR model. We might do some different vocabulary activities. And if you are looking for vocabulary activities on my YouTube channel, so if you go over to Gold EDU, and you can search in the YouTube channel, there's this arrow here, and then you click this little magnifying glass. I can actually search for vocabulary. And I have, again, a couple different ideas on vocabulary, but this video right here walks through a bunch of different strategies that you can use for your Wednesday. And so you can kind of see here, it's based on Bloom's taxonomy. So I can go in here and I can go to analyzing and I can do some of these 3 truths and a lie, or I can go to Meme It and I can have my kids create these different memes. I could use auto draw. But this resource has a ton of different vocabulary templates and ideas to help your students. And so what my students will do is they'll look at the ones that they missed and whatever vocabulary activity I choose for them to maybe work on. So I might have them do this thin slide study guide where they will define, they're going to write it in their own words, and then they're going to find 4 images for the words that they missed. And what happens is after that on Thursday, their scores go up to an 85. So again, Wednesday, we kind of work on some instruction. We take the words that they mostly missed and work on those. And Thursday, they're at that 85. And so then Friday's that last day, and they should be at a 90-ish to 100% on those vocabulary words. But it's just a great way to grow your students. We did this with a group, and we were focusing also on executive functioning. On executive functioning, goal setting is one of those areas that some people really struggle in and some people have strengths in. And so with goal setting, what we kind of realized with Fast and Curious is students, once they saw this 20%, they might have had a fixed mindset, right? I can't grow. That's always going to be a 20%. But what they quickly learned that if they keep at it, it moved up to 100%. So we started to have students goal set. We also had students that were able to see that their fixed mindset was broken by growth mindset just by seeing their scores go up. So that was really exciting to see for our students. And so what you can do with this is students can have this assigned to them in their learning management system, and then they are able to keep track individually of their scores if that's what you choose. Students are also able to compete against different classes. So maybe you have 3 different classes. So class 1 versus class 2 versus class 3. So you can compete that way. You could also compete by table groups if you wanted to do it that way. So just adding that game element can, again, really help your students when they are working towards learning and mastering your vocabulary. Next up is blended learning. So blended learning has a bunch of different resources. And there is a video resource right here again, where you are able to kind of go in and see all of these different resources within. So if you click on all of these different images, it's going to walk you through just some different resources. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of walk you through each of these different resources and how you can use them again in your classroom to engage and increase that engagement with your students. So the first activity that we're going to just walk through, it's called a Wonder Wall. And what you do with a Wonder Wall is you are just creating clarity for your students. And engagement starts when there's clarity, right? When we know exactly what is expected, what's happening, it allows us to really focus in on what we need to do. And so, right here, what are we learning? Why are we learning it? When will I know I have learned it? And they're able to write what they are doing. You can list it out for the week. I also have teachers that list out what they're doing by minutes. So this would be one class period, where this would be maybe like a longer project that has different deadlines or due dates for each of the students or check-in points. And you can kind of see here are different examples of Wonder Walls, but it just, again, it allows you to organize your information for your students so they know exactly what to expect and when to kind of expect that. The next one is station rotations. So with station rotations, there are typically 4 stations: a teacher-led, an online station, offline station, and the 4 Cs. This allows your students to travel between different activities and work on different activities that align with your content. And so, for example, with the teacher-led, students are going to check in with Miss Fernie, and they are going to check in with her, complete some activities, and she or might do some formative assessments with her students. Whereas the online station, students might complete this dinner party, where Amanda Sandoval again created this resource, and they are hosting a dinner party, and they have to explain who's going to sit where and what conversations they're going to have. So again, you're getting that creativity, you're getting that critical thinking. You can also have your students work with a partner on this activity if you wanted to. And they're really starting to think what conversations might occur based on what they're learning in your class. The next one is a sketch and tell. So sketch and tell is another great way. What students are going to do here is they're going to go on a gallery walk. You can see here are different images that were hung around the classroom. So this again was that offline activity. They had a clipboard and they actually drew the different images, and then they described it by writing out what they all meant. The next one is the choice board. So students had these different choices, and what they had to do is they had to pick one activity from this choice board. And so there was different directions down here that walk through what they had to do, and students just had to pick one of these choices to work on during that station. So that is one way that you can organize your station rotations for your students. And then right here, we kind of listed out who was where, so students knew which station they were in. And then we also just had kind of some expectations with some rubrics. So this is the Starbucks rubric that we like to use, just to remind students that, like, if you went to Starbucks and you ordered something and they got it completely wrong, that's a 1, right? Like, you're upset. You ordered something very chocolatey and they gave you some kind of strawberry juice thing, right? You're upset. So that might be a 1. Where number 2, maybe your cup isn't full, it's the wrong size, they didn't give you ice, like they kind of messed up, but at least it was that chocolate, drink. That 3, you got exactly what you ordered with no mistakes, so you're 100% satisfied. And then that number 4 is maybe they gave you extra chocolate chips or that whipped cream. So we just kind of walk through students this rubric to help them make a connection of what our expectation is when they're working on these different assignments. And then this was like the final rubric that students had to use when they were working on their dinner party. And another way that you engage your students is with roadmaps. So again, you're able to kind of use roadmaps to help guide your students on different activities, but you're also able to differentiate these roadmaps to really meet your students' needs and to provide different scaffolds to them. So that can provide another resource for you and your students when you are guiding them through maybe a project-based learning activity, or having them learn new materials where they're completing different activities in an organized manner. There's also must do, then do, can do lists. So if students finish activities in the must do, then they go to the then do and the may do. So that can be really helpful as well as students are kind of going through those different lists too. And then choice boards, right? So choice boards can be a great way for students, and you can see all of these different examples for students to get creative and to think out of the box and to kind of problem solve with other students as well. So choice boards are a great way to help your students achieve that. This is just a example of teacher check-ins. So again, teacher check-ins are another great way to provide that critical thinking piece and check in with your students. And this one, what you do is you would assign this in your learning management system. Every student can edit, and your students actually take ownership and they sign up for which small group they want to attend or which workshop they want to attend to get some more instruction. And then you can also track your student success. And so this walks through how to kind of organize your students. You'll type their names and then they can communicate with you which activity they're on. But just tracking their work allows them to have some goal setting, right? They can kind of say, okay, my goal today is to get to 2A, or they can say, okay, I need to get this done today, but they can see kind of like that accomplishment of checking something off the list as they're working. And then they can use this status over here to inform you if they need help or checked or any kind of communication like that. So that was blended learning. Okay. So again, we've talked about different vocabulary strategies and blended learning to engage your students. Activity number 4 is stop motion. So right here, again, is that video resource. And then if you click here, it walks through that stop motion piece. And so with stop motion, students are able to think out loud. And so I got this graphic from Nadine Gillison. And you can see here the first step is students are going to storyboard. They're going to just get their ideas out on a piece of paper. They're going to create, and then they publish their work to the web. And so for this example, students are talking about state of matter. And what they had to do is they had to explain or give an example of the different states of matter. So then what students did is they had a blank piece of paper, or you could use these slides, and they had to draw what they were thinking for each of their different slides and how to get their story to come to life. And then what students did is they had in Google Classroom this blank slide deck. And then what they did is they just duplicated and moved things around just a little bit. And so what happens, let me go ahead and file, make a copy, selected slide, is students started to create this story using stop motion. And so right here, they took their little particles, and then I can duplicate the slide and just move this one a little bit. Duplicate. Let's move some blue. Duplicate. Move some more blue. And students were able then to explain what was kind of happening. And then once they were all done, they went to File, Publish to the web, which is now in Share. And then they can just change this to every second, restart the slideshow, publish, and then they can copy that URL. And we were able to see their slides start to come to life. So again, you can see those little balls kind of moving around to demonstrate. And what you could do to level this activity up is have them screen record, and they could explain what is happening in their stop motion video as well. So it's just, again, a fun activity for you and your students to kind of try and explore. This next activity is called Thin Slides, the Edu Protocol. Again, there's a video resource here. And what happens is every single student gets one slide, and on that one slide, they have to add one word and one image. And then they put their name in the speaker notes. So for example, every single student gets a copy of this. You could use Pear Deck if you wanted to, or Nearpod, and then your students could actually draw their image, but sometimes I like them to use that Google search. So for this activity on slide 5, I would assign just a blank slide like this. There is power when you're able to have all of your same students working in the same slide deck. So I highly suggest you teach them those etiquette skills when they are learning and trying to work in a slide deck. It can get messy, but again, walking them through the expectations and what you expect can be a powerful experience for that collaboration. So they put their name in the speaker notes, and then they are able to come up with their one word and one image. So if we are talking about engagement, let's go ahead and go to Giphy. I am going to look up maybe engagement. And then I could add an image to kind of help with that. I could go, because it's coming up with a different engagement, I can do exciting. I like this one right here. Okay. And so then what happens is students are able to add their image or their GIF, whatever you set up or whatever they want to set up. And then they add their one word. So they add a text box and they think of what might be engaging. And they think of, again, that one word. So that could be an example, it could be another synonym, whatever they might want to do when it comes to that engagement. So again, they would write their one word. And then they can decorate their slide because, again, you set a timer. The timer is typically 5 minutes. It's quick. It's a quick, like exit ticket type of idea. And then once every single student's done, you hit the slideshow button. And then you will just keep clicking on to the next student. The next student shares. So then they share out loud their slide, and then they kind of explain what they created and why they created it during that time. So what a great activity to just quickly hear from every single student in your classroom. You don't need to pull that popsicle stick. You don't need to call on different students because everybody's sharing, right? Everybody is sharing a slide in that slide deck. And it's just, again, a great way to engage your students when it comes to learning. And then that was kind of like all 5 ideas, but there are some more ideas, and that is games. So games are a great way to engage your students. And what I did is I added a folder of just some different games that you can use to engage your students as well. So I'm just going to quickly kind of walk through some of these different ideas with you that you can use in your classroom. But games are usually just like an added layer that you're able to add into your classroom for students to explore. So the first game is bowling. So just like you would get some pins and a bowling ball. And as your students answer questions correctly, they just get to bowl. Okay, so again, this is just an easy way if you have some pins and a ball, and your students can then look under the pin and there's different numbers, and that's how many points they get. Okay, so that could be a great way to just add a little bit of engagement when you're trying to get students to answer questions correctly. This cakewalk. So what students are doing is they're answering questions on a whiteboard. They're walking around these numbers that are in your room. So usually it's a circle, and the students are hopping from number to number. And then once the music stops, they have to answer a question. So they might have whiteboards while they're walking, and they answer that question on their whiteboard. And as they do that, the students are then going to they're going to stop, and they actually get cake. So they actually get a piece of cake that hopefully your parents are able to donate for your classroom. Typically it is like maybe a little cupcakes or like those Debbie type of snacks that your students are able to unwrap and eat. But again, it's just a fun way that if they get the question right, they get that piece of cake. Car races is another great idea. So you can actually have like little cars and tape on your floor, or you could use the slide deck. They answer questions. They get to add their different starting points, and then they get to move their car. So every time they answer questions, they get to move their car, and the first car towards the end wins the game. Okay, so just another great idea and activity. Chance, this is a great way to maybe increase behavior, or you can use it for content as well. Students will answer questions, or as you catch them being good, they get to place their name in one of those boxes. There's 100 boxes up there. At the end of the time, or at the end of the game, or at the end of the questions, you will call a number. So you get to randomly choose one number out of 100. And that student that's in that box gets some type of reward. So again, quick way to engage your students. Also with chance, um, you could, I like to do this when I catch the whole class being good, I like to put a star in that box. And so if that box gets drawn or called, that entire class gets a Jolly Rancher, whatever the prize is. So again, that can just be kind of fun too. That because there's not that many stars on the board, but sometimes that jackpot does win, and everybody gets super excited when that happens. Shuffleboard. So students are going to answer questions correctly. If they do, they are going to then earn chips. So as students are earning chips for good behavior or again answering different questions, they're getting those little chips. Once the game is over, they've got 15 minutes to play shuffleboard, and then the winner wins some type of prize. So right here would be kind of that shuffleboard that you would set up in your classroom. Again, you could use tape. Um, and what they're going to do is they're trying to take those coins and put them into the different pieces of that triangle. So they can try to knock their opponent's tokens off, and that's kind of their goal as well. They want to get theirs on and their opponents off. And then after all of them are shot, they're going to take the score, and whoever has the most is the winner. And then there's the unfair game. So this game is a lot of fun as well. And what happens here is students are answering questions. Once they answer questions, they pick a number. Once they pick a number, they decide if they're going to keep it or give it away. If they keep it and it's a negative number, they get those points. If they give it away, then that person gets those points. And at the end, the team with the most points is the winner. So here's the board, and students will say, I want 15 if they get that question right. This was linked in slide 15. And so that team would say, if that team would say, I want to keep it or I want to give it away. So they don't know what's behind. We'll say door 16 because I accidentally clicked. So door 16, they will say, I want to keep it. Oh, it's negative 30 points. So that team would get negative 30 points. Next team goes 26 and they get to swap points. So again, they're deciding if they want to keep or give away before they click. And then whatever's behind it goes to either their team if they kept it, or it goes to the other team if they gave it away. So every round they pick a number and then they have to decide keep or give away. And it can just be a fun way to engage your students and have some just fun in your classroom. And this one is on here as well. And so this is another way to play the unfair game. You put different fun rewards up here. So candy, seat pass, hat pass, or mystery prize. And what happens is students have to answer questions. So they have to answer a ton of questions. And then you have maybe like a wheel of names. And when that wheel stops, what students have to do. So there's the names. That student that gets chosen gets to pick which prize they want. Okay, so then their name goes under it on the whiteboard. Then they get to stay in the game, so you don't remove it. You just close it. You want to keep it on there. And what happens is you spin it again, and whoever's the next winner gets to decide if they want to go where that seat pass was, because student one really wanted that seat pass. They can steal it, or they can pick a different reward. And so again, that's why you don't want to get rid of your students off of that wheel, because you are able to kind of make sure that they are um, kind of having fun and they can get back in the game. Okay, so again, that's just a really fun one, is that unfair game, and this is version number 2. So just a reminder, they can be selected more than once. Keep them in the game, so that way they always have a chance to try to win and steal those prizes. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I just wanted to offer support. So if you have questions or you need anything, I put my email on there. And Twitter is also on there as well. And I look forward to connecting with you. And I hope you have a great conference as